Welcome to season 2 of Fractional. Andrea was just making me laugh a second ago. Hold on, I have to get composed.
And I didn't
Just
realize
like
it
I
was
did.
season 2, so even better. Okay.
Yeah. At the date of recording, we're halfway through season 2
Oh,
episodes.
awesome.
Yeah. Season 1's last episode will air on March 22nd of 2024, depending on when someone's watching.
Awesome.
So anyway, welcome to season 2 of Fractional CMOs in the 90-Day Win. I'm Dean Way. This season, we're going to talk through scenarios that companies and these CMOs experience to share lessons learned and tips on how to get the most out of a fractional CMO that you've hired. So, hi, Andrea.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I'm composed now. I have my bearings. Here we go. Okay, so same as every other episode, you just started a hypothetical 1-year engagement as a fractional CMO, just got hired, right? What's the first problem most of your clients need to start fixing? Or what's the first problem you normally go looking for because you find it pretty much everywhere you go, even if that client's not aware of it? And also tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'll start with introducing myself. I'm Andrea Sok. I'm the founder and CEO of Sok Influencer PR. I've had the pleasure of working with mission-based organizations like United Way and the UN over a 15-plus career as a communication strategist. And in the past few years, I've transitioned to fractional CMO, and I work more with startups and small businesses. Basically, my team is focused on getting results faster. So we started working with clients who needed to move faster. And for us, that looks like fintechs, wellness, and innovative nonprofits.
Right.
So when I first start, the first problem I tackle is direction, strategy. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? In the first 90 days, we can develop a clear strategy, obtain some quick wins, which usually looks like cost savings or getting systems in place. And then I come in and quickly organize their existing efforts, put plans in place, and bring some of those new tactics into play. So we see results right from the start.
I could tell you, I don't think many of the guests on this podcast have said that they start off by figuring out a way to reduce the marketing spend.
I think coming from a nonprofit background, I'm so used to
every dollar counts, right? Yeah.
small budget, and so I get flabbergasted when I come in. I see where we're spending money, and with no rhyme or reason either. Oh, well, we figure we need to do an ad spend here because that's what everyone else is doing.
We read a blog post that said we should be doing email, right? We saw an article that said that we need to be all over social. We need, there's this and that, like all they've just like spread out their money in all these little fires that never actually
Exactly.
catch. All right, fair enough then. So the most common answer when I ask fractional CMOs how the company or the CEO can get the most value out of a fractional CMO, the most common answer they said is like, don't like hide stuff from us, share information. Right?
Definitely.
We need that. And that's absolutely fair. Besides that, because it's the answer everyone gives, and I'll ask this question, same question both ways. You can choose which way you want to answer it. How can a CEO get the maximum value out of this 1-year CMO they just hired? Or if you like it another way, how do they avoid wasting money on this fractional CMO?
So yes, sharing everything, you need to have the full picture. So yes, obviously echo that. I would say show up when you need to. Really a lot of the times the point of hiring a fractional CMO is that the CEO is doing that work, or
I hear that a lot.
And they're strapped thin. So the CEO wants to spend their time in other areas of the business. But when we need a decision and we need you to show up and weigh in on something, show up. Don't be distracted or don't delay. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with folks where they're sitting on things and we can't get to the goal in the time we said we're going to get to it if you don't, if you're that roadblock. So show up when you need to, make decisions, and don't hold us back. We want to move and we want to move there quickly. So
you don't have to be the reason that marketing's progressing at a great velocity, but you can't be the reason why it isn't progressing.
Don't be the roadblock.
Velocity.
Okay,
fair enough. All right. So a different scenario now. A friend of yours or a peer has just become a fractional CMO. They've just landed their first client. Okay. What sort of advice would you pass along to a fractional CMO that's sort of walking into a company where there are already people working in marketing? Let's say like junior and mid-level folks. There's no leadership, but there's like junior and mid-level folks. Like what sort of lesson or two lessons or advice would you give them to, like how to interact and how to, best line up with those folks?
The best thing I can say is listen, 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 listen. Listen before you move or do anything. You really want to get a true understanding of the team, what they're working on, their skill sets, their ideas.
Right.
Ultimately, you're all working towards the same goal. But if you come in like a bull in a china shop and start moving things around, you're going to come up against confrontation. So listen first, and that could be the communicator in me. But come in and listen first, take it all in before you decide to do it. You really put any plans in place.
All right. So let's flip it around for a second. All right. You're one of those junior or mid-level marketing team folks. You just found out that the company has hired a fractional CMO. You went and Googled fractional CMO because you've never heard of what a fractional. You've certainly never worked under one, right? Okay, now you know what's going on. So, what do you change, or what do you do to, or what changes can you expect to see in your job now that a fractional CMO has been brought in?
What I would say is all things for the better. You should expect leadership. You should expect some direction, and you should expect an advocate in your corner. Most of the companies that I work for, the situations that I'm walking into, they've never had anyone in that role before.
Right.
So they might have a junior marketing person who's doing the execution end of things, but they've never had anyone at that leadership level. So really take this as an opportunity to one, learn, to advocate for things, use that person as your advocate, be communicative, share what's going on so that that CMO can advocate for you and advocate for, the tasks and things that you want to see happen. You shouldn't really see a change in your job, but the workflow would hopefully be smoother. And you should feel more informed. You should have, again, you have that voice from the C-suite who can inform you about the big picture goals, where we're going, and what your role is in helping to get there.
And probably at some point, a comfort that you're not just doing like that you're doing the right work at the right time.
Validation.
Right.
Validation for sure. Mm-hmm.
And that, like, there's a sort of a guidance and a strategy. It's not just like, let's do this and then not do that. Sort of like at the whim of someone who just read another article about marketing.
Yeah, it's I used to work for an admiral, and he always said, Andrea, know the why. So you're not just doing these things and, so-and-so's doing these things and so-and-so's doing these things. There's a big picture. There is a plan. So let's know the why and understand the why. And that does help. It helps you with clarity and helps you feel better about your job as well.
Yeah, I had similar experiences when I was mentoring some. I used to be a software developer and mentoring software developers, and they were sort of like trying to choose companies. And I say, if you're a software developer or you work in IT or you work in any particular field, right? There's a world of difference between, in this case, being a software developer in a company where software development is their business, and that's how they make their revenue, and being a software developer in a company that does something else, like sell drugs, right?
Right.
That in one, you're a mechanism for revenue and profit and growth. And in the other, you're a cost. And in some companies, marketing is a cost. And in other companies, marketing is like how we drive the business.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be a world of difference between, as a team member in working in one versus the other over time.
The environment is totally different.
Yeah. Okay. So another question, and this one is about maybe personal preference, or maybe you have an opinion on this, like overall. And what I can tell you, when I workshop these questions at the beginning of every season and get feedback from CMOs and stuff, and no question had as much pushback as this one, in that it split almost cleanly into two camps, and each camp knew that they were right. Okay, because each camp said, Dean, if you ask that question, literally everybody is going to answer A instead of B, or B instead of A. I said, okay, well, if you all disagree, then I've definitely got a good question there. Okay, here we go. Right. Is a fractional engagement better, or do you prefer it when it's a marathon or a sprint? As in, a sprint has a definite like goal and end date, and we're like, we're pushing and running to get to there and accomplish this thing. Or is it better when it's sort of a enduring, durable drip, X number of days per month or hours per week kind of thing, until some date that no one even knows?
Right.
Marathon or sprint? What works better, do you think, overall or for you?
So if you ask me what I
People have strong
prefer,
opinions on this.
so if you ask me what I prefer, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say I like the diversity of both. So in my with my clientele, I do have both. I have folks that either fall in that bucket where they are in a sprint, they want to get to the goal as quickly as possible. It is date specific, so it's a product launch or it's a nonprofit undergoing a capital campaign. They want somebody who's going to come in, do the thing, work us toward that date, and then our agreement ends, and maybe they bring somebody in house, or maybe they go a different direction. And then I also have that bucket of small businesses that I work with, where their business size doesn't really warrant someone coming in full time, but they want that leadership, and they want that strategy. Maybe they have a junior marketing person on staff who's executing, but they want somebody who's going to come in and do that big picture thinking, and again, advise the CEO. And those are ongoing engagements, and they're not in a startup mentality. The business, it's a small business, so it's going to stay that same size for its lifetime. And so I actually like the diversity of having both in my portfolio, because I like helping people with the long term, the big picture. I think we can accomplish a lot of things, and we can see a lot of wins over time. But I also like that defined sprint where it's like we have the budget, we have the staff, and the CEO is all in to get to the goal. And we're pulling out all the tactics. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I like to do both.
Very diplomatic. Okay, so most of the people who watch this are not in marketing, and most of them are most likely executive leadership. According to the analytics so far, they're mostly CEOs and people on an executive leadership team. They're probably hiring either their first ever fractional CMO or their first ever CMO period. A lot of them are startup phase, right? I have a question related to what you just said, and it's partly because most of the audience doesn't work in marketing, and partly because I expect even a smaller number have ever done anything in the nonprofit world. What is the difference between a capital campaign and a fundraising campaign? Because I don't know the difference.
So, well, there's a couple different scenarios. So in the nonprofit world, a capital campaign is usually for a physical site building. You're trying to raise X millions of dollars to build the thing. You can do a longer term fundraising campaign, but generally fundraising campaigns, they do have a start and end time. We're doing a Giving Tuesday fundraising campaign. We're doing a fundraising campaign to fund a new program. So usually once you reach the dollar amount, the campaign is over. And that's different than obviously the startup world where they're fundraising for a seed round or whatever round of funding that they're in. But all those tend to have a time frame around them. So sometimes we'll come in and we'll be asked to assist with the marketing on a fundraising campaign to launch a kids program or kids reading program. So they want to raise X amount of dollars. We're assisting with the marketing to get them to that fundraise. So we're working with, as opposed to in a for-profit where we're working with the sales team, we're working with the development fundraising team.
Okay, so a capital campaign is to raise money for an asset?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Better put.
As opposed to any other sort of fundraising they might do where it might or would likely go towards operations.
Correct.
All right. I never knew that. Good to know.
I'm here for you, Dean. I'm here to teach you.
Thank you. Since you put me off my mark and put me off the X at the beginning of this thing, it's nice that we tied it up with a bow at the end. Appreciate that. Okay, Andrea, so who should reach out to you and how should they reach out to
you? So going back to that last question, again, I work a lot with small businesses. You have a smaller team, you want to do the marketing. Typically it's the CEO who's doing it, and they either that's not their skill set or they don't have the bandwidth, or generally both. So small businesses, and then I would say startups and nonprofits who again have a quick turn. We want to get to point A in this amount of time. We have this amount of budget, and we can come in and organize it and get that done. So those two buckets, they can reach me at my website, sokinfluencerpr.com, find me on LinkedIn, or email me, Andrea at sokinfluencerpr.com.
All right. This has been so great. And I learned something new, which is always fun for me. My favorite thing to do. Thanks so much for being here, Andrea. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
Good
for
talk.
having me.
And thanks everyone who's watching. See you next time in the next episode.